Hello there fellow modelers, and welcome to part 2 of building the Airfix 148 scale Jaguar GR.1. So we're going to be applying the canopy now. I always like to give that a nice little polish. We're just going to get some masking tape off here and make our own masking tapes, which I like to kind of get one straight edge, right, so we don't have to cut that edge. A cocktail stick can be helpful in sort of bringing those edges out to make it a bit more of a guide for you to cut. Definitely recommend a nice new sharp blade for this, and we can just follow the lines. You put up to a light as well if need be to see those lines better, and give it a good clean on the inside before applying it to our cockpit. Now the front part of the canopy, I do like to use Tamiya extra thin cement for this, but the rear part I like to use the micro crystal clear. I only like to use that because if I need to remove the canopy and get to stuff, I can. And I am going to be sort of having this an open canopy as well, so I'm just going to put like just a little dab, a blob just here and there. You know, we're not going to glue this completely. This is just so as it stays in place, but we can remove it easily at the end, and a little cotton wool bud just to wipe up any sort of excess that's kind of oozed out. Now on to our air intakes. We've got a bit of a gap going on there, so nice new technique I like here, which is using 3D printer resin, which is nicely UV activated. Using a paintbrush, we can just try and work that into the gap, dab it down a little bit, and get exactly where that gap needs to be like filled and made all nice and smooth. And we activate it with the UV light when we're ready. You know, we've got all day to mess about with that. You also get these little gaps as well. With these ones we don't need to sand it, so we can take our time and play around with it. You know, IPA is a good one for cleaning up this 3D resin printer stuff, and we can just keep playing with it, just get it so it's just in the gap, nowhere else, and when we're ready, you know, we activate it with the UV light, which is what I really like about this stuff. We're coming in with a coarse sanding stick to start with, and we're just trying to sand just the actual resin here, not the plastic, and we move our way down the grit, and as we kind of get level with the plastic, we can sort of begin to use, you know, finer sanding sticks and polishing sanding sticks, make it look like the rest of the plastic, and that should be then all good for probably a little bit of scribing. So we're just going to come in with templates, really sort of keeping it light, and you know, if you've got to take 50 passes, take 50 passes. Just you know, make sure you don't slip is basically what you're after there. Now we're going to come in with some white tack, and we're going to sort of seal up all our wheel wells just here, and we can just shape the white tack to go with the shape, right, so we don't get any overspray in there. But we can then come in with like some foam. You can come in with blades as well, just to kind of get those edges sort of just right and whatnot. And the foam's good because you make it a little bit bigger than the shape you need, and then you kind of like squeeze it in there, and it will just expand and, you know, kind of close all those gaps up. But you just got to kind of loosely sort of cut it to shape. Right, we're going into the spray stage, so gloves on. We want to clean up the model, get rid of any dust and debris that's going on in there, because we don't want it to go into the recessed panel lines and then we spray on top and then it turns into like a filler. IPA is good for cleaning your model, getting rid of the dust, debris, the grease, all that stuff. It really makes a good surface for spraying. So we're going to come in with the dark sea grey. This is to actually spray the canopy, the clear parts, so when we look through the canopy we'll see the colour we want to see, which is the interior colour. While I've got some in my airbrush, I'm just going to sort of spray where I've done filling, sanding, scribing, and just make sure that work is good, and you know, if I need to touch up, I'll touch up. So onto the primer. I do like Vallejo's primer just here, and we do a 50-50 mix with homebrew thinners, which there's a tutorial on the Genesis Models website if you want to check out how to make your own thinners. And then we're going to come in with some black after we've just nicely primed it. And we're just doing the pre-shading, which is basically, you know, you want to get your biting point, which is where the paint just comes out, and then you want to follow all your recessed panel lines, maybe even some rivet lines, and we're just keeping it random. You don't want it to look checkered, you don't want to look uniform, right? We want that kind of random weathered look. You know, mistakes aren't such a big deal as well with pre-shading, because we're going to cover it. It's quite forgiving, this technique, so don't worry too much about making those mistakes. In the flat spots, I like to just do a bit of mottling, right, just to add a bit more interest to those flatter areas. And there we go, we're all pre-shaded up. So we're going to now get out our main colour, our first colour, H331, which is our grey. 50-50 mix with some Mr. Hobby thinners, and we're going to start off with a light misty coat. This misty coat is just to allow all our other coats to stick that little bit better. Then we can do normal light coats, which basically it gets more coverage, a light coat, and it kind of looks a bit wet, but you know, you don't want it to get wet, so it's just kind of light, right? We don't want to go heavy, and you'll just see that pre-shading is just popping through that little bit, right? But we don't want to kill it completely off by putting too many coats on, so I'm thinning the paints down a bit more to give us more control over not killing off that pre-shading. And hopefully what you'll end up with is the pre-shading just pops through that little bit, you know, to your preference, how weathered you want it to be. You might find some little flat spots where it's like a little bit too heavy, and you can just target those areas. Now we're going to come out with some flat white, where we're going to add this to our mixture. So we're going to do some what's called bleaching here. This is where we kind of weather the paintwork up a little bit more, make it look like it's been in the sun and weathered, and we're basically targeting inside those panel lines and just giving it that light little mottled effect, right? And that kind of just makes our paintwork look that little bit more than just being flat. Now I'm going to come in with a gloss coat. We're using the Mr. Colour leveling thinners for this one, and we'll get that all glossed over, ready for what we're going to do now, which is we're going to mask this up with blue tack. We're going to make those sausages, and we're going to make our pattern, you know, and we're going to fill that in with a bit of masking tape. You know, it's a good way of, you know, getting that camo pattern. So some hobby colour thinners with the next colour, which is our green, our H330. When we spray this on, we do want to make sure that we don't overspray in the where we've got our blue tack, because we don't want it to bleed through, and because it's raised, we also want to make sure we get our angles right as well, so we don't have like feathered spots as well. And then the best part is we get to remove all of this masking tape and everything, and reveal our camo pattern, which hopefully you can agree looks quite good. And again, we're going to come in with some flat white and going to begin actually doing some more bleaching, but with our green. Be a bit light with this green. I do find can be overpowering if you go a bit too much with it, so you know, keep it light at first and just see how it ends out, and add some more later. Now we're going to come along to what's called post shading, right? This is the same as pre-shading. We're just mixing the same color, the green, but with some black, and we're going to add more thinners to make it more transparent, and we're going to again follow those recessed panel lines. Now because it's more thinned down, it's more sort of transparent, so it's not going to be as strong, and we don't really want it to be that strong, and we just follow those panel lines, keeping that biting point, but keep it random. You know, I mean, some panel lines you can pass over 2 or 3 times, make it darker. Some you can pass once, or maybe even skip them altogether, just to keep it random, not uniform. It's the randomness is what you're really after with that post shading, right? And as you can see, it gives that lighter sort of effect. And then we want to just fill that well, basically put a nice gloss coat on, as always, ready for the deckling stage, right, which we're going to do a 50-50 mix with the mystical leveling thinners, right. The leveling thinners is important because that's going to allow it to be more glossy. I'm also going to come in quite thick. You know, you want to get it really sort of wet but not like dripping wet. If you can get it nice and wet, you can really get a super gloss finish, as you can see just there. So there you go. Hopefully you've enjoyed part 2. We'll have part 3 up next week, but please do go visit the Genesis Models website, where you will find all sorts of videos and goodies over there. But as always, until next time, my name is Bobby Waldron, this is Genesis Models, and I hope you've enjoyed.